Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lakeville Area Schools 194 School Board meeting this May 26, 2026. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I'll start with roll call to my right.
Tony Reichenberger.
Matt Swanson.
Carly Anderson.
Amber Cameron.
Michael Bauman.
Kim Baker.
Paul Carbone.
Brian Thompson.
Great, thanks everyone. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Bauman for Good News and Educator of Excellence Awards.
All right, well, thank you, Madam Chair. And we got a lot this evening, so hang on. First of all, I want to start with an acknowledgement and a thank you. On May 12th, voters in Lakeville Area School District approved the Growing Together bond referendum, and the vote was 54 to 45%, 54% yes, 45% no. And I want to take this time to thank everyone who took the time to learn about the referendum and exercise their right to vote. Also want to make sure that you understand that by passing the bond referendum, our voters have chosen to invest in the success of our students, and that is very heartfelt and meaningful to all of us who are working diligently every single day to improve our education system. And this funding is going to help us create more comparable learning environments across our 3 middle schools and ensure that every Lakeville area student receives the opportunities that they deserve as our community continues to grow. I also want to thank the entire team that it takes to run a special election, especially those who put in months of hard, dedicated work ahead of the election day, and our district's communications staff, the assistant to the superintendent, and our middle school principals and their staffs. Each of these individuals played an important role in sharing information about the bond referendum with our community, and I am eternally grateful. Additionally, I want to thank Dakota County and Scott County for their election support, our 6 absentee election judges who came in to work right here at the district office for the past 46 days for early voting, and the many election judges who ensured an efficient voting process on election day. We could not do this without you, and we are very, very grateful. I also want to thank all of our staff in the buildings who contributed and helped pass the word and share the information. Your contribution is especially important to all of us, and thank you. During a special meeting on May 19th, the Lakeville Area School Board did approve the resolution canvassing the return of votes of school district special election, and the district will continue to keep the community informed about the impact of their investment. And again, we are very, very grateful for your continued investment. Additional details can be found at isd194.org/vote. All right, some awards. Athena Awards. Congratulations to seniors Hayden Jansky from Lakeville North High School and Ava Welsh from Lakeville South High School. Both of these are named this year's St. Paul Area Athena Award recipients. The Athena Awards program recognizes a school's most outstanding female senior student athlete for their athletic achievements. Award selection is based on excellence in individual sports or for participation and accomplishments in team sports. So again, congratulations to Hayden and Ava. Lakeville North Speech delivers standout performance at state. The Lakeville North Speech team earned an impressive second place overall finish at the 2026 Class AA state tournament, competing against 37 teams from across the state of Minnesota. The Panthers also celebrated strong individual performances, with 7 students advancing to finals and 4 earning state championship titles in their events. Several Panthers and Cougars will go on to compete at the National Speech and Debate Tournament this June, and we wish them the best of luck. Orchard Lake students excel at Math Masters competition. fifth grade students from Orchard Lake Elementary recently showed off their problem-solving skills and teamwork at the Math Masters competition. Competing against 99 individual participants and 21 teams, Orchard Lake's We've Got Problems team captured an impressive first place finish, while the Calculating Cougars team placed 10th overall. Math Masters is a mathematics competition program designed for students in grades 4 through 6 that challenges participants to think critically, solve complex problems, and apply mathematical concepts in creative ways. So again, congratulations to those students who participated in Orchard Lake excelling at Math Masters competition. Fifth grade musicians take the stage in Southeast Honor Band. 26 talented fifth grade students from across the district participate in this year's Minnesota Band Directors Association Southeast Honor Band. Students representing Christina Huddleston, Cherry View, Eastview, Highview, Oak Hills, and Orchard Lake Elementary Schools joined peers from more than 20 schools across southeastern Minnesota for a full day of music making, rehearsing under guest conductors. And throughout the day, participants grew as musicians in large ensemble setting while proudly representing their home school. So congratulations to those fifth graders. Adapted softball takes third at state. Our own Blazing Cats adapted softball team just wrapped up another impressive season. The team, consisting of student athletes from Lakeville, Burnsville, and Farmington, took home third place at the 2026 Adapted Softball CI Tournament. Congratulations, Blazing Cats. And then Lakeville South sophomore was selected for prestigious all-state choir. Lakeville South High School sophomore Claire Fields has been selected for the Minnesota All-State Choir, one of the highest honors a school vocalist can achieve in our state. To earn her spot, Fields had to outsing hundreds of other talented student vocalists through a rigorous audition process. Fields will be joining a group of approximately 250 of the top singers from high schools across the state this summer at an intensive choir camp at Concordia College. She will perform in the grand finale next February at Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis. So congratulations to Claire Fields. So that concludes our good news, but I have the next thing on the roster here is I want to introduce EML President Carrie Popp. She is the outgoing president who will introduce the Excellence in Education Awards recipients. Carrie.
Good evening, Chair Cameron, members of the school board, Superintendent Baumann, and Executive Cabinet. It is great to be here tonight. I'm Carrie Popp, the EML President. Besides being here tonight to present our Educator of Excellence Award winners, I'm also excited to introduce our new EML President, Randy Adams. Randy is currently a fifth grade teacher at Lake Marion. He will be starting his new role as EML President as of July 1st, but tonight he'll be doing these wonderful speeches. And congratulations to Randy on your new role.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Cameron, members of the board, Superintendent Baumann, and the Executive Cabinet. I am honored to present our two 2025-2026 EML Educators of Excellence Award winners. It is our pleasure to recognize our elementary winner, Hillary Morlock. Hillary is the Digital Media Specialist Lead and the Cherry View Elementary Digital Media Specialist. Hillary's passion for teaching, her innovative use of technology, and her constant willingness to support both students and staff make her truly exceptional. She inspires curiosity, creativity, and confidence in every child, ensuring each one feels seen and capable. Hillary is always learning, always sharing, and always putting students first. Her warmth, dedication, and leadership in helping staff navigate
ever-changing technology make her deeply deserving of this honor. Congratulations, Hillary, on being the 2025-26 EML's Elementary Educator of Excellence Award winner. Next, we are proud to recognize Erin Mulvaney-Mankowski as this year's Secondary Educator of Excellence. Erin is currently an English educator at Lakeville Pathways Academy. As the sole English teacher at Lakeville Pathways Academy, Erin not only teaches all required English courses, but also designs additional electives to meet student needs. Her passion for literature, dedication to student achievement, and commitment to creating a safe, inclusive classroom make her an exceptional educator. Erin is a true leader at Pathways, serving as the building equity lead, union representative, and PLC facilitator, while continually collaborating with staff to support students. She goes above and beyond to meet learners where they are, often creating individualized coursework and working closely with families to ensure student success. Her efforts have helped many students, including those facing significant challenges, reach graduation. Erin also supports students during summer school and still manages all of this while being a busy mother of two. Her compassion, innovation, and unwavering dedication make her deeply deserving of this honor. Congratulations, Erin, on being the 2025-26 EML Secondary Educator of Excellence Award winner. You can make the rounds.
Is that it, Superintendent Bauman?
Yes, Madam Chair,
All
thank you.
right. Just making sure. There's a lot of
Wonderful.
great things to celebrate. There is no additional board communications tonight, so I'll move to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Tony, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kim. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll move to public comment. We have one person signed up for public comment, but I still want to read kind of the parameters for public comment, just in case people are interested in participating in the future, which we highly encourage. So at every end of the month meeting, the board will open up the floor for 30 minutes to allow the public to address the board with comments and concerns. To participate in public comment, individuals must have registered in advance using the form provided on the website by noon on the Monday before the scheduled public comment session. There will be no board response during the session. Public comments framed as complaints and/or concerns about students and/or staff are not appropriate in a public forum due to data privacy laws. These comments should be addressed to the administration outside of a public meeting. Likewise, complaints about school board members should be privately directed to the board chair and/or superintendent. No formal action will be taken on a topic presented during public comment. As necessary, the administration will follow up with the appropriate personnel on any concerns that need to be individually addressed. Also, if necessary, the board will follow up during board communication at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. The board will provide a signal when the participant has 30 seconds remaining of their time. Please try to keep audience noise to a minimum to allow everyone the opportunity to speak uninterrupted. So tonight, our sole speaker is Nicole McKenzie. Come on up.
Good evening, Board of Education members and leadership team members. My name is Nicole McKenzie, as you said. I'm an elementary educator in Lakeville area schools, and I'm here to represent many colleagues who would like to see IXL reinstated at the elementary level. I've gathered data from K through 5 educators at multiple schools, and so here's some of the highlights. We presently have literacy tutors, but no math tutors. IXL is a cost-effective way to strategically fill this gap. Our 4th and 5th grade educators have been teaching Bridges for 2 years and one teacher for 6 years, as she came from another district that also utilizes the Bridges curriculum. So some positives that we're seeing with Bridges are enhanced skills in mental math, divergent thinking, and number sense. Math talks have increased students' ability to explain their thinking, and multiple standards are integrated into each lesson, which fosters engagement and retention of concepts. IXL will complement our core resource, Bridges, through alignment. It is aligned to the Minnesota state standards and MCA test, and if there's a standards or skills gap in Bridges, IXL is a ready-to-go resource to fill that gap for individual learners and small and large groups of students. IXL benefits learners in not only math, but literacy. There is on-demand differentiation which is highly individualized to meet the needs of remedial, accelerated, and grade-level learners. This allows educators to teach Bridges in small groups while students practice recently learned skills from Bridges material. It facilitates targeted spiraling and strategic practice, so we can assign specific skills and reinforce challenging concepts. Students get immediate feedback, which bolsters engagement and retention. And this supports our multilingual learners in over 100 languages and includes integrated audio and visual aids. There's a home school connection where students can practice skills outside of school. And finally, IXL can be an additional data point for teachers showing what skills have been mastered, and it can be used as a pre and formative assessment to guide instruction. IXL is an ISD 194 vetted, standards-aligned, field-tested app, which is used in grades 6 through 12 and has historically been used in our elementary schools. Therefore, it is already compatible with Diskit, our IT department, so we hope you'll consider reinstating this cost-effective resource in the coming year to help educators strategically fill skills gaps, reinforce learning, and differentiate for multiple ability levels in our classrooms. Thank you all for your time.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move to the consideration of approval of the consent agenda, which includes board minutes from a variety of meetings, employment recommendations, payment of bills and claims, a resolution regarding acceptance of gift donations, a few extended field trips, the District 917 LTFM plan, which we discussed at last work session, the district LTFM plan, also discussed at the last work session, the tech equipment sale, also discussed at the last work session, the English language arts resources as recommended by the Teaching and Learning Department, social studies resources as recommended by Teaching and Learning Department, and policy 704, development and maintenance of an inventory of fixed assets and a fixed asset accounting system, which we discussed at our last board meeting as a first reading, and this would qualify as a second reading. And the final item is a resolution establishing dates for filing of affidavits of candidacy for the school board. So with that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as is? Yep. Director Swanson.
I'd like to remove I and J for further discussion.
Okay. I and J would be the English language arts resources and the social studies resources, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to approve with
Okay.
the consent agenda minus I and J.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Oh, sorry, Brian.
Yep, less of a discussion, but just more for awareness. We are approving consent agenda item letter L, resolution establishing dates for filing for affidavits of candidacy. And so I believe what I received, I think historically, the last date to file to be on the school board or to be on the school board, I think it's usually early August is kind of, I think I've seen. Did I read this correctly that they've upped the date to July 28th? Is that right?
Correct.
Is that what
The
you
filing
okay.
deadline is
Obviously, we don't have
July
any control
28th.
over that. That's like the state of Minnesota control.
Correct.
But for those who are interested, because you're just hanging out over Prague and you're wondering what to do over the summer and thought, hey, maybe I should get more involved, in this wonderful weather of Minnesota that we have. You have until July 28th
Great, thank you.
to be a part of the fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda minus I and J, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Let's move then to the two removed items. So first being the English Language Arts Resources. This item is on the agenda tonight for consideration for approval by the board. Is there a motion to approve the English Language Arts Resources before discussion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Discussion.
Yeah, I was wondering if, I don't know if Tracy would be the one to answer it, because we had some discussions earlier, kind of offline, about the two different resources at the middle school, one being, I believe, is Amplify, and the other being Savis. And my seventh grader, and then another seventh grader I chatted with, were very insistent on Amplify being better. And so just wondering what the take was from the teachers, middle school teachers, between the two different programs, and then what the studies are showing as far as effectiveness of the two different programs that helped you make your decision.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. I will say that we go through a very robust process to adopt these resources, and I think you've seen that process document that we've shared with the school board through Friday Notes. Sandy has a robust process with our teachers to review all of the standards and make sure that resources align with those standards. We also bring our resources to the Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee for their feedback. We get feedback from the community as we post the resources online for people to be able to provide any comments that they might have. And we also ask our students and our staff what they think about the resource. And so that's one criteria. Student voice is one piece of the puzzle. Sandy is more intimate with the work, so I'm going to give her an opportunity to answer that.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the question. As Tracy has mentioned, that is one component that we look at when we're identifying which resource we want to move forward with. Most importantly, we want to make sure that that resource is aligned to the standards at the level of rigor that we would expect students to be able to perform at. In addition, we also look specifically at what are the key shifts in concepts as it relates to teaching that content area, what are the evidence-based instructional practices that we want to make sure that our teachers are able to execute when we look at those resources. And when we are choosing those resources to move forward with the field test, we look at a variety of different platforms, both nationally and locally, to determine which ones are best aligned to the rigor that we're looking for. We also belong to an organization called the Minnesota Area Curriculum Leaders. We work through that group as well, and we build networks across the metro area and across the state to learn what other districts are doing, and we collaborate with those districts too. And then of course we do a very formal vendor vetting. We spend quite a bit of time speaking to those different vendors and really making sure that there is that alignment. We also create a resource rubric for each of our content areas, and there's multiple criteria that we look at, including all of the pieces that I just mentioned, but we're also looking at what type of professional development will they support with us? How does it interject with the pedagogy that we would like to see in that classroom?
So student voice is just one piece of that, and we had some students that liked the other resource and some that liked this one, so we had a mix.
How did the teachers break on it? What were their thoughts between the two different programs or resources?
Yeah, which one are you speaking to particularly?
Amplify and Savis.
Yeah, it's pretty much broken fairly equally, depending on which category that you're looking at within that rubric. So it was a difficult choice for our teachers to make. The one thing that we need to keep in mind is when we're bringing field test resources for our teachers to be able to decide upon, they equally have merit. And so it's really looking at those nuances when we're specifically looking at our rubric and which one would best align. But it's very close, as many of our resources are.
I'll also add in there that we didn't just start with these two resources. Sandy and her team thoroughly research about 10 or 12 resources before those are even brought forward to the teachers to take a look at.
Yep, Director Baker.
So when I looked online at the content for this specific curriculum, it was definitely had components that were geared for ELL students. Is there some type of portion of that curriculum that would help students for intervention for like special education? I see that it goes down through 4th grade, but I just was curious as to if they had that intervention support as well.
Thank you, Director Baker. Yes, there is definitely a portion of it that relates to differentiation. And I want to give a huge shout out to our coordinators. We have 2 of them that are in the audience with us. Because we're speaking directly to ELA, Natalie has done a considerable job in collaboration with our special education coordinators, the teachers, as well as our EL coordinators and teachers to ensure that there is differentiation. And if there needs to be some other pieces that we need to think for core supplementary resources. Because we want to think about it through the READ Act, and the READ Act really talks about making sure that all students are reading at grade level, including our special education and our multilingual students. So we take that seriously when we're looking at our resources and supporting our teachers.
Great. And Brian?
Thank you for all the work that the group has done in this kind of effort. I think the broader issue for me is it's less about maybe the curriculum that's being presented to be asked to be approved, but more about the process of how it's being presented. Part of our core roles as a school board member is policy making as well as curriculum adoption. And in my mind, having it as part of the consent agenda it doesn't put much spotlight in the curriculum in this core role that we ought to have. While we've had multiple conversations as a board around a $3 million levy, $139 million levy, academic reports and dashboards, but yet we are not going to have a dialogue around 10 curriculum items that will be in place for the next 10 years for over 12,000 students each year, and assuming as they go through the process I'm terrible, but over 1 million students will be going through the Minnesota Historical Society Northern Lights. Now, I'm not here to say that particular resource is incorrect or wrong, but I think at our last curriculum adoption with the English digital curriculum that was asked to be proposed, we had good discussion around it. Now, I'm not saying we need to have discussion on all 10, but my recommendation to the board is to pause and bring this back to a working session and do a presentation like we did with the digital curriculum so that we are all aware because of what's being brought forward. I know this was in the school board notes, but the general public does not see this as well. Now I get that it was part of teaching and learning. Some parents get to participate. Some just watch school board meetings and are not involved. Some of the stuff is already in the school board packet, but my recommendation is that we've got 10 core curriculum artifacts that are being asked to be proposed from world history, geography, economics, U.S. studies. There's a lot of changes that occurred to the social studies standards. How much do this curriculum adopt and meet the state standards? Are these state standards things that we as a board want to adopt? Because there are pieces that we don't. I don't know. And so I guess for my point of view is this is a strategic decision that's going to last for the next 10 years, and it's embedded in a consent agenda, and we're just voting yes or no. And so my recommendation is for a slight pause for the next 2 weeks if that doesn't disrupt any existing process.
Dr. Carbone?
Yeah, and I would springboard off of that. If I remember some of Bill's discussions in regards when he was doing budget, the amount of money we spend on curriculum, which is a reasonable amount of money. Again, back to what Brian said, I think we need to dive into this deeper and get enough content and enough information so we can make a wise decision here. I do think, and I don't want to mix them because I know they're two separate letters, but they kind of need to be mixed because both of them, I think, have the same, in my mind, dilemma. we need to understand the content more. We need to understand what it is we're actually giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down to here. And I'm not sure we can do that with this brief little exposure. And I know we read it, but
Director Anderson?
Yeah, I think part of, I guess my question would be, what is the role or scope of the school board in this process? So as I understand it, and this is based on kind of how we've been processing this year and historically, is we do have people on this board who serve on teaching and learning. That was me and
Right.
you. And
Matt
so,
now. Matt's on teaching and learning.
and now you're, yep. You're new. But, it's one of those things where I feel like we have representation, we have voice, and how I perceive my role as a school board member is what has the process been. I do like to see the robust nature of the process. I know I asked some questions about technology and subscriptions and all those kinds of things, so it wasn't that I didn't think I or this board had a space for question. I have no expertise in evaluating this curriculum versus that curriculum, or what is going to be the best curriculum to meet the standards. That is where I see our role as a board to make sure we have people who are knowledgeable, who also put people on committees who are knowledgeable to make those decisions. So for me, as a board member, it's more about, was this a robust process? Were you consulting with other districts? Were you looking at a variety of materials? All of those things were covered, and now they're coming forward. I think the reason why this is in the consent agenda is because it's been a robust process. This is their recommendation. There has been detail in the Friday notes where there has been opportunity for us to ask questions. I don't necessarily know how the public benefits from getting into the details about that. Because I guess I trust the experts to know how we're going to best serve the students based on the standards. So that would be my perspective.
Director Swanson, then Baker, then Carbone.
thank you.
Yeah, I don't disagree that I like to have these kind of things highlighted just to show the public, like, look, this is the work that's being done, that they don't see. To Brian's point, I think it's also an opportunity to kind of dispel some narratives that might be in the public that kids are being indoctrinated one way or another. We have the opportunity to kind of put those issues to bed publicly, and it's on the record then you have an opportunity to stand up and show, like, this is why we picked this program over to this program. We think this is going to carry our students further, advance them further based on, we looked at these different studies. These 7 districts have used it over the past 3 years and have had great results. Just providing that sort of clarification for the public, I think can be beneficial. We were provided with the rubrics and stuff like that. I don't know that we need to get into the detail of that. And as to I don't know that we're moving on to J or have to start discussing that, but some of those are just renewals, right? We're just renewing the existing curriculum. And then it's even hard, like, I guess my question would be, like, what's the level of, and I'm probably getting further beyond this discussion, but, like, what's the level of anonymity, within each school, within each classroom, as far as, like, you have the lessons plans or the rubric and the guides, but then is it, hey, this is the topic you're teaching, or the subject matter for this month, or whatever you want to, however it's categorized, and you just go do it how you want to do it, or you have the discretion of how you're going to cover different topics or pick your own topics within that category. Those are the kind of questions I guess I would ask, whether it's here or at the TLAC or.
Do you have any response?
Want
Or
to
if
answer
you'd
that
like
one?
to.
That's kind of a lot. Yeah.
Sure. We are aligned to the Minnesota state standards. And so Sandy came to you with the 4 different steps in how we align to the Minnesota state standards. And so that guides what our teachers are teaching. The resource is just one piece of the puzzle. It's the instruction in the classroom. The teacher is the most important tool that we have in that classroom by far. And so the resource is just one piece that aligns to the standards. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I think we need to think about curriculum really is not only the resource, the instructional strategies that you bring towards that, and your assessment. All of those pieces define what curriculum is. But to your question directly, Director Swanson, we really value having a guaranteed and viable curriculum across our system. And we develop in those phases, as Tracy mentioned, we have the different phases that we go through in a standards-based review process. And when we get into phase 3, we're really developing those scope and sequences and those pacing guides, identifying specifically what is it that we're going to be teaching, how is it that we're going to be assessing it, and then pacing it throughout the year. And that's really work that we've started at the secondary level already, at a high level with our PD days that we've had this year, and we want to continue that work. And so know that any of the resources that we're bringing forward to you, it really aligns to that third phase of our standards-based review process, which isn't complete until you create that pacing guide and that scope and sequence, which then defines your guaranteed and viable curriculum, so we have consistency and coherence across our system.
All right, Dr. Baker?
First of all, I want to agree with pretty much everything Director Anderson stated. I agree that we put professionals in key positions within our district to make these type of decisions, but just listening to the discussion that board members are having on this topic, it seems like the questions are revolving more around the process than around the curriculum itself. So then I go back to, why would we pause right now if the board is not sure on the process? We've talked about our processes as a board throughout the school year. At this point, to shift a process because we feel like it needs to be more visible, it's like making a moving target for our staff, that they're always trying to catch up to what now we want to do and now we want to change this. I feel like we need to be firm and establish our processes, let the team be able to respond to how we want the information presented, and then stop changing that. So we're not constantly having them try to play catch up with us. If we want to talk about the process, that's great. There's no reason for us to pause this right now for more visibility when we can't get our act together. So my opinion would be to let the curriculum go. They've already went through the process of bringing the curriculum to the community. And correct me if I'm wrong, usually you have the curriculum set up at a building within the district, or you have in the past for parents to come in and peruse and look through. I remember as a parent, I did that throughout my kids' time in school here, and I think I was one of 2 that used to go in and look at the curriculum. But that's another option for parents to have that opportunity. We have the teaching and learning community. They have emails that have been shared with parents to look at this curriculum. I agree that it would be nice to have more visibility and maybe a presentation at a working session for a board so that people have one more option to look at, like, hey, there's this great curriculum that we're adopting. That's great. But again, that's changing the process that we've already started. So I feel like let's continue with this. And if we want to alter our process, we'll do it in the future, not with something that's already started.
Dr. Carbone?
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure it's about the process. The process to me is the infrastructure. It's the how you design it, how you lay it out. I think part of what we're talking about here is the content. I don't want to speak for Member Swanson or Member Thompson, but what I think I'm hearing is, case in point. Okay, we're concerned about math, absolutely. We're concerned about English, absolutely, and other things too. But if you look inside this, one of the pieces, and please correct me if I'm wrong, one of the pieces is in social studies is citizenship. And to me, building good citizens is as important as math or any of the other subjects.
Director Carbone, we're only talking about the English resource at the moment. That's the motion on the table. So we'll get to the social studies one.
Okay,
but
well,
right now it's English.
I'll just take that phrase and save it for later.
All right, perfect. Just want to make sure people know what we're voting on.
Put a pin in it.
I think what I'd like to point out, and I'll get to you, Dr. Thompson, is maybe echoing a little bit of what Director Baker said. I think over 6 months ago, our board was informed of this process, that there will be these many layers before it would come to the board. And so I was not chair at the time, but on November 6th, November 21st, November 26th, December 1st, we got an email and Friday notes from the superintendent, and this is for the public to be aware, that this entire board was informed of this process every single week. And again, on May 1st and 15th, that this was coming up. And then in between, we were kind of informed of how the process was unfolding. But in those particular times, those 5 times, there was explicit direction to the board that this is, that they're following the process, the district's following this process, and that these would come to us on the consent agenda. I think what I'm frustrated about is I haven't heard a single thing. Michael hasn't heard a single thing, including before I was chair. And so if this board was comfortable with that for the last 6 months, I'm concerned that a couple of things. One is kind of changing the target at the last minute, because these are needed resources now. I'm also concerned that, and I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but I know we all are busy, but we're not doing our homework if we're not reading these Friday notes. This is where critical information is being shared to this board. And if that is not an effective way to communicate with each other and from the administration to us, that is what we should be talking about. Because I think what this is highlighting for me more than ever, and the emails that have come in, is that that communication is not being read, and there, I know there's moments maybe where you read it more in depthly than not, but if you are this uncomfortable with the process, you need to stay engaged. It's not at the table where you bring it to the last minute to change it up. And that's the frustrating part. You've had half a year to express this, and even under different leadership, and this is when it's coming out. And so it feels like we're throwing our staff under the bus when we have agreed to something for an extended period of time. So I'm going to put that on the table. Director Swanson.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take this as a bad thing that people have questions about the curriculum or what's going on. And again, we didn't have any, I don't think we approved any new curriculum until the last time you guys were here, maybe 2 months ago. And we didn't know, and I can't remember how it came up, but I know we discussed it in a working session, whether it was scheduled that way initially.
It was scheduled that way initially.
And not on the consent agenda, so.
It was on the consent, and we agreed to talk about our process one time to get everybody on board. And again, no one at that meeting suggested we should alter the process, so people continued with the process.
Okay.
And here we are again.
And I don't think anyone's complaining about the process of how we got to today, right? I think the question is just providing a little bit more transparency to the public. And again, I like you guys coming up here and explaining, like, this is how we got here, this is why, because the information we get in the Friday notes is limited, right? And you can click through it, and it's a lot of information, but it is somewhat limited, and there are other questions, like I think you had asked with the last curriculum that we approved, like, well, what other districts are using it, you know, which is information that we weren't provided, and which the public might want to know, right? Like, how many other districts around us are using Savvis versus Amplify, you know, going to that decision and how you're weighing that. Because it sounds like, you know, you guys are picking the curriculum that best aligns with the state standards and provides the most rigor that you think we can effectively implement, right? And then, but to that point, well, what are other people implementing, and what's being successful in other districts, right?
And I think my understanding, and this goes to Dr. Anderson's points, is that we have an incredibly robust process that hits all of these levels and answers exactly what you're talking about. I think my challenge right now is that it was said explicitly this would come on consent at least half a dozen times. And if people were uncomfortable with that, I think we should ask each other. But to pull it off at the last minute, I understand people want more information, but I think what's confusing, or it's hard to manage a board if people don't articulate what they need in order to make decisions. So and it's hard until you wait till the last minute. So I think that's what I'm hearing from the administration. And so I'm looking for better, I guess, from myself and from others about, if you need a different process, let's talk about it. But I'm inheriting a process from, you know, what was brought to us in the fall. So, Director Thompson?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I changed my mind. It is what it is. I mean, there wasn't a vote in November that said this is the process, this is how we're going to do it. We didn't have any curriculum to actually vote on last year. And I think I was pretty clear or adamant that, hey, we should have a presentation on what are we implementing for our 12,000 students in all of these respective grades. And so, you know, if we're going to defer to professionals and bring things forward, and we just kind of I don't want to say rubber stamp, but approve it, then there's no need to have special education here. We can just approve what they want. No reason to have finance here. We can just approve what they want. But why are we picking and choosing things that get presented to us when something like this, especially in the curriculum space, is something we ought to be discussing? Because we had good dialogue literally 4 weeks ago on the English curriculum, and now we're rubber stamping 10 more. And so my recommendation is, again, if it doesn't derail anything, I would like to make a motion to table this for 2 weeks, do a quick high-level overview of these curriculum options.
Do you want to amend the motion?
I don't know if I can amend it. I think when you motion to table, I don't think you need to amend anything.
No.
But you can't make a table at all?
Tabling would have priority.
It does.
Yeah, you can make a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
We do have teachers coming in right after school ends to be able to align their scope and sequence and continue the work forward. So if we delay for 2 weeks, I'm afraid that work isn't going to be able to move forward. The teachers blocked out their summer schedule to be able to come in and work with us.
Do we already buy the curriculum then? So then what are we doing between now and then? Are we buying the curriculum? And
Yes.
then it will all arrive in 2 weeks. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're able to get access to the digital resources. There's not necessarily hardcover resources anymore.
Do you want to move forward? Director Thompson?
No, I mean, I don't want to derail the scenario, but then I'll make an amendment that the next working session, we talk about this process and have it on the agenda at the next working session. Because again, there is value in talking about this at a board meeting, not just for us, but for the general public. The things that we get via email, they're not going to get that. The public's not going to get that. And and if curriculum is part of our job, and we're just going to just not even, yes, we're talking about that, but we're not going to kind of get the overview that we would get with finance, academics. We get an overview for athletics and so forth. And so I guess in my mind, I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Do you want to make an amendment to add?
No, I don't need to make an amendment, but my recommendation is throw on a working session because, you guys, I mean, what are we doing? Honestly, I mean, we'll keep bringing this up until we actually have a forum where we can have dialogue. I mean, that's how this board likes to work. We like to be presented things. That's how all boards probably work.
And I think there might be a difference, and some of us feel like we are very much presented to, and the public. So I think there's a difference of opinion of how the presentation should happen, but not that it wasn't presented. Director Baker and Director Anderson and Swanson?
I would agree with Chair Cameron. We've had teaching and learning presentations. I can't even count how many times that you guys have been before us talking about different parts of our curriculum. This is one part of the process, and I feel like I've been very well informed about it. So, again, I would second what Director Cameron said. If you're feeling like you've missed part of the process, then maybe that should have happened before this meeting, and you should have followed up and let us know so we can talk about it as a board. Because, again, like I said, I feel like we're talking about a process, which is fine, but again, it takes a majority of the board for us to determine what our processes are. And when we had the past meeting, when we talked about that, nobody said that they wanted anything different than what we were already doing.
We talked about it at the last education curriculum discussion, working session. Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, and we had a majority of the board that was fine with this.
Oh, all right, got it. Yeah. The majority of the board was fine with it. That's why it kept moving forward. So we didn't vote, but we didn't vote during that working session. So I don't know how that was an official decision. Did we vote?
No,
I mean, did we vote during working sessions?
No.
So then how is that a decision then?
It was a working, yes. We
Yeah,
had a
so how's
working
that a
session.
decision?
There was no discussion that the process should.
Interesting, Mrs. Baker.
There was no discussion.
Because all meetings of the board are regular
Time out, you
meetings.
guys. I don't think there was any discussion at the time, Brian, at that work session about the process needing to change. The question was, what is our process? And that was what was described at that meeting. Director Anderson and Swanson?
Yeah, I don't want anyone to feel like they don't feel educated to make a vote. So I think there's something obviously for us to address here and discuss. I think the challenge that I feel in this moment is I don't at all feel like I'm rubber stamping this. I've been involved. I understand what your process was. Approve it. I'm thankful for it, so thank you. I think there are opportunities coming up where if board members want to become more involved in TLAC, I'm happy to rotate off to allow someone to rotate on. If there are other ways that we can communicate information, I think we can explore that. But part of the challenge of all of these things getting presented is we only have so many board meetings per year. I've always talked about, like, perhaps we need to add a board meeting, but I don't think the board wants to do that. So it is, some of the information we work on is behind the scenes and being able to individually process it behind the scenes to then be able to ask questions in a format like this, but we're not going to have a presentation on everything that we vote on. So from my perspective, we're not rubber stamping. We have representatives on TLAC, information was shared out, we're informed. But if people aren't feeling informed, I think that's something we can explore at a future meeting.
Director Swanson and then Reichenberger.
Thanks for answering my questions. Appreciate it.
Director Reichenberger.
I think some of the discussion here is getting a little derailed, just in the sense that, like, the idea of a consent agenda is that it's an agenda where everybody agrees. It's a unanimous consent. That's why it's called a consent agenda. And there's clearly some members that disagree with some of the things that are being brought up. Perfectly fine to remove it from the consent agenda, move it down to regular business and discuss it there. We'll still have a vote on it. We'll still hear the discussion. We'll still do all the things that the normal board will do. But I don't think we should be upset that something gets pulled from a consent agenda at any point. Having a normal discussion is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're at that point, though. We're having the discussion about whether to approve the resource, right? So there's a first and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving letter I, English Language Arts Resource, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes 6-1, is that correct? Okay, with Thompson being the dissent. All right, we're moving to consent agenda J, Social Studies Resource. Is there a motion to approve this resource?
So moved.
First by Anderson, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Baker. Discussion. Yeah, Director Swanson.
Same kind of question. What other programs, why this over the other options? And I know some of these are just renewals, right? And so you can clarify, hey, did we look at other programs and consider other options? And then why, from an academic standpoint, did we land on these ones?
Thank you for the question. I think the answer is similar to the ELA because it is our process. We do look at a variety of different resources. It goes through a robust vetting process. We have a resource rubric. And particularly when we're looking at social studies, we're really looking at not only does it align to those grade level benchmarks, but also in the way that is the key shifts and concepts in teaching that content. One of the pieces with social studies that the Minnesota Department of Education endorses is the C3 framework, which is the inquiry framework, which is really developing compelling questions, thinking about primary and secondary sources, really going through a robust process of thinking about claim, evidence, and reasoning, and then critiquing that, very much like our civic responsibilities, as Director Carbone has mentioned. And so that really is the root of when we're talking about social studies, is that inquiry design model of really being, not only being able to know that content, but also thinking through it through a critical lens.
Other questions? Dr. Thompson.
Hey, can you share with me, there's a section in here that has taking action as one of the 3 key steps. Can you walk me through kind of like, what does that entail? I don't know if that will cause folks to, like, taking action on history, taking action on geography. Are they working on projects? Are they going out to the community and doing activities? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it could be project. It could be very much a project-based. But that dimension 4 that you're speaking of, Director Thompson, is really thinking about the communication and then critiquing those conclusions, really thinking about what is the claim, what is the evidence, how am I reasoning through that, and what might be some next steps, and really looking from an unbiased lens, looking at opposing perspectives and viewpoints.
The C3 framework that Director Georgie is sharing is a national resource, and that's what the state standards are built off of. So just so you're aware where that C3 framework came from.
Other questions? Yep, Director Thompson.
And can you share like any major, like any highlights of what changed in the state standards that we should be aware of, or that the community should be aware of? What is now emphasized more? What is less? And is it going to be harder? I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
Every year goes by, it feels like we got to keep remembering more things, but now with ChatGPT, Tony says we don't have to. So
I think the biggest shift, not only with the social studies standards, but any of the content standards, is it's not enough just to know the content. It's really about that problem solving and that critical thinking and that inquiry. Particularly with social studies, some of the key shifts that are occurring with these standards compared to our past standards is they're centered on that student inquiry. They're also centered on disciplinary literacy skills. Are you thinking and learning like a historian? The other piece is it's looking at interdisciplinary model. Before, like, for example, in 4th grade, it might have just been on the United States geography, and no longer does it have those simple themes. It's really interdisciplinary. And then the other piece is it's aligned to those strands, like economics, history, geography, etc. I think to answer maybe better your question, Director Thompson, is it's not just lower level thinking of something that you would Google, like a DOK1 or a DOK2 answer that you could find that on the internet. It's about what do you do with that information? How do you think critically about that information? And how do you think it through civically as well?
So then how do you test on those kind of things? Because everyone will interpret things differently. I mean, if critical thinking is the overall end objective in social studies and maybe geography is geography, like whatever, it is what it is. This is where Minnesota is, right? But like for social studies, there's so many different perspectives and viewpoints. Yeah. And so while the curriculum, I'm assuming has multiple viewpoints, and it's going to anger many people because of the various viewpoints that it may have. But the intent is, here's how you can look at it from these different lenses. So when we talk about taking action, or we talk about how would you view it differently, it like how do you then grade on something like that? How do you educate something like that?
Yeah, I think it's really about what you are speaking to. We're developing our students to be problem solvers, problem finders, critical thinkers, to be able to analyze information for bias. And also another piece is when, I'll give an example, when you look something up at the internet, do you just take that one source for face value? No, we want to teach our kids that they need to look at multiple sources, look at primary sources, secondary sources, before they're making that claim. And that's where that evidence piece is, and then reasoning through what might be the best decision based on these different sources that we have from both a primary and secondary. So really, when you think about it, it's developing those critical thinkers so that they can think through things that are complex and look at it through a diverse lens.
I will also add that really that is the work. As I said before, the teacher is the most important component, and Sandy added it's the curricular resource, the assessment, and the instruction, all of those pieces together. So part of Sandy's and her team's work is not just around choosing a resource and then saying we're done. It's coming back to our teachers and providing professional development so that they know what the C3 framework is, and they know how to support students through an inquiry framework. So we have to also support the teacher in our work, not just give them the resource and say, okay, we're done.
If you think about it, the standards are the content, and that C3 framework is how we deliver that content. And each of our different content areas, such as ELA, you have the content of the ELA, but you're delivering it through a science of reading lens. So all of our content areas have a way to deliver that. And then for science, it's through the 3D assessment, as we visited in past presentations with all of you.
Dr. Thompson, then Swanson.
And so my last question is, because I've got more, but it is what it is. I know that curriculum, when we go to these various sources, they generally provide 80% of what the state standards are. So I'm assuming that's going to apply with these 10 resources that we're also going to be purchasing. So I'm assuming we'll have to come back, or you will be coming back with the remaining 20% on what the gaps are, or is that something that the district and the staff will be creating on your own? Do the teachers make that? Do we, how do we fund that? And so I just want to make sure while we purchase this curriculum, it's not going to cover the whole standard, correct? It's just from my understanding.
I think particularly when we think about the standards based on MDE are the indigenous standards. Those do not show up because nationally that isn't an area that's being addressed. So that is something that we look at to make sure that we're supporting those standards. And sometimes we support it through supplementary resources, whether it's a text. Other times our teachers work together and they develop units of study, and that's what they do during summer writing. So this first round of summer writing is really for our teachers to be comfortable with the resources, thinking about how it aligns with those instructional practices, looking at that alignment, and then identifying potentially where there may be gaps, and then determining, do we need to have a supplementary piece, or is that something that we create within our units of study within the design of a C3 framework?
All right, Director Swanson?
Is it safe to say that these resources will help the overall goal of having consistency in the secondary curriculum?
Yes, yeah, 100%. As Sandy talked about earlier, that the teachers are engaged in creating those scope and sequences, and that helps when a new teacher comes in. They can be handed the scope and sequence so they can see what the timing is, when they're supposed to teach what they can. It also helps with our PLCs when the teachers come together to talk about those units of study or those common assessments. They can talk about, how did your kids do on this assessment? How did mine do? Why didn't mine do so well? How did you present it? And so they get to talk about their craft of teaching as well.
I think the other piece that is very helpful when we look at social studies, particularly at the high school from 9-12, even though we have those different courses, we're still using Savas, which is the same platform. So that also helps students when they're moving from course to course. That platform looks similar, and it also helps our system because there is some consistency with that as well.
Other questions? Sure. What I appreciate about the social studies curriculum is, we're approving many tonight, but I think we say social studies and forget how many courses are involved under the social studies umbrella, right? Everything from history to psychology to economics. And so appreciate kind of the holistic review and knowing that we probably will need to supplement, as Director Thompson is saying. And I think that's where there's opportunities within the state to utilize like the university or the Historical Society, right, who know the state standards as well, who can help district supplement. So I appreciate the diversity of resources being brought forward. Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, there's a first and a second. All in favor of approving the social studies resources as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1 with Director Thompson in dissent. All right, next we'll move to district reports and discussions. The first presentation up is the special education update. So, Director Humphreys, come on.
Good evening, Chair Cameron, Superintendent Bauman, members of the board. Our Director of Special Services, Alexia Poppy-Finley, will be presenting kind of an overview of the special education program updates for this year for you.
Thank you. Good evening. Board Chair Cameron, Superintendent Bauman, members of the board, Executive Cabinet. Thanks for having me tonight. Oh, I have to click. Okay. Tonight, my goal is that you would have an overview of who we are in student services or special ed section of student services, a little bit more about our programs, services, and settings, who our population is, special education staffing, and then some highlights from our school year. You can see in the center, Michelle is our leader, and then we have 3 buckets of the work, our due process clerks, and they're really supporting the due process administrative support tasks behind the scene at our different levels, elementary or early childhood, elementary, middle, and high school. And then we have our special education coordinators, which are our special education administrators that are serving at the building level. We have 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school level, and then we have 2 that are splitting up our elementary schools, and then Julie, who's over all of our early childhood. We have 2 amazing instructional behavioral coaches and we have a third. You can see that it says to be determined. We had a third that chose to go back into the classroom this year, so that position was kept open. We did close it in the spring because we wanted to reset for a fall hire. One thing that's important to name is who we serve, the different categories of special education. So when you think of when a student goes through the evaluation process, we are looking at these are the different areas. So if a student would qualify for receiving services, these are the ways that they would qualify under specific disability categories, which is then we're writing our goals and objectives, et cetera, to support them and ensure that they have the services appropriately matching their disability category. Our school age settings. So you may have heard like setting 1 or resource. What's important is federal setting 1 and federal setting 2 are students who are primarily served through a resource model. They are about 0 to 20% of their day is spent within the special education classroom or receiving services from a special education staff member. As you go up in the federal settings, that increases their time with special education staff. Setting 3, you'll notice that says 61% or more. That are students that you might hear staff refer to as program or center-based. So the majority of the students' day, over half of their day, is primarily within their special education classroom. Lastly, we have our Fed setting 4.
A lot of slides. Okay.
Yes, keep going. Federal setting 4, so this is our students that are placed outside. They're at a separate school setting. So for us, we are a member of Intermediate District 917. So this is that category of students who are placed within 917. One change for this school year is that all of our Lakeville area schools have setting 1, 2, and 3. In previous years, maybe that wasn't the same. That was not the case. This year, we do have setting 1, 2, and center-based programming in every one of our buildings to support our students. We talk about the program names. So you may hear someone say their student is in the A+ program or in the ACES program. So we wanted to make sure that we named the difference. Our A+ program is primarily serving students on the autism spectrum, and they're looking at their executive functioning, communication, and social skills. Our ACES program has a little bit of a richer ratio, and they have more complex needs that they're also navigating, like their AAC, their devices to help them communicate. They generally have speech and OT services as part of their services on their grid. They also need work on support for communication and social skills. Our MAP, that's primarily serving our students who have the disability category of EBD, focusing on small class size, the individual behavior supports, emotional regulation, and their academic needs. Finally, our DCD programs. I'm not sure why they didn't get a cool name. They're just DCD program, working on the students' cognitive alerting and learning needs, focusing on their functional, academic, and life skills. So that's an overview of our center-based programming and how they're divided up amongst our buildings. This is a visual of the center-based classroom. So when you're looking at this grid, you're going to see in the column that has all of our elementary school programs, and then across the top is the programs that I just described. So if you're looking at Christina Huddleston, A+, there's 2 A+, setting 3, or center-based classrooms within that building. Here's our secondary grid. So again, secondary is middle school and high school, and you can look across, same. ACES, A+, BAPT, and DCD. If we're looking at our count, so early intervention, our youngest learners, birth to 3, this is as of May 20th. And I put the date in there because this fluctuates pretty regularly. So we have in early childhood, as of the 20th, we're serving 112 students. Our ECSE, that is our 3 to 5 group, we have served 233 students currently. And at our elementary, 948, our middle school, 388, and our high school, 457 students. Transition is listed because transition, as we know, students who receive special education have the right to receive special education up until their 22nd birthday. So transition is 18 to 22. We currently are serving our transition students at the TESSA program, which is part of 917. On the setting level, something to note that I wanted to, why I called out setting 4 is we're looking at, we have 82 total students being served within our setting 917 programming, but 43 of those are our transition students, so they get lumped under federal setting 4, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have a setting 4 IEP.
Dr. Cameron. Before we jump to 917, because it sounds like it's a different topic, maybe? Can we go back to, I've got a few other questions.
Just finish, or do you want to take questions as you go?
Why don't you finish, and then we'll take questions.
Okay, I will finish and then we'll take questions.
Sounds good.
Lastly, or another prong that sometimes we forget about is all of our students that we are serving outside of our buildings and 917. So we have 5 private schools, non-public schools, that are within our school boundaries. And we are currently serving 33 students who attend our private schools. We also have a partial hospitalization program in Lakeville, so students who are enrolled in there for stabilization, they also receive an educational component as part of their day, and we're serving 20. We have homeschool students, and then that maybe is self-explanatory, but we have homebound and home-based. The biggest distinction between those two is homebound are students that are confined to the home, that they have a medical condition that is saying that they need to be bound to the home. We have a provider that's going into the home. Where home-based is an IEP team decision, and that's generally served in the community or at home. Intermediate District 917. So we currently support, 917 supports us in the following areas. You'll see the program and services. On the right side, you'll see our enrollment data. So we currently have 82 students that are served by 917. I said this already about the TESSA program. What is something that I thought the board would appreciate seeing is the wait list for placement. We currently have 14 students waiting placement, and we've also had 13 students who have received intakes this school year. Staffing updates, something that's important is the number of our contracted providers. I think the board is well aware of our staffing needs, and we've been able to hire throughout the year 48 different contracted providers. Something to note is we have ended the contract for 19 of them, 2 licensed and 17 non-licensed, and that's due to the quality of service provided. Current providers, we have 27 contracted providers, 13 licensed and 14 non-licensed. Licensed, again, is speech language, OT, special education teacher, any of our licensed special education staff. Our open positions for next year, we're really proud of this. Our team has done, our buildings and our coordinators have done an amazing job being responsive to candidates and selling our district as a place to be, and we are down to this many open positions. So this did not look like this a week ago when we started this, so we're really proud of our work. Our greatest need is within our special education teacher positions, both center-based and resource. Our special education staffing, something to note with our needs changing, and over the course of the last 3 years, we have increased the FTE by a few full-time employees. I think we have that in here. Let me see. I can tell you exactly what that was. Sorry. I was trying to remember. We have increased it by 3 speech language pathologists, 3 school psychologists, 5 special education teachers, 1 OT, and 1 nurse over the course of the 3 years. Some highlights. Our professional development days are something we're pretty proud of this year. We have been able to have, from early childhood through 12th grade, collaboration and support for our occupational therapists and our speech language pathologists and our school psychologists, being able to bring them together for calibration, first learning what are we doing at the different, and then how do we calibrate, and how do we also create processes that can sustain versus trying to maybe reinvent each time something that will live with us that's based in compliance. We have a monthly newsletter. It's an internal newsletter that we send out the first week of each month. That's highlighting any changes, any compliance concerns. It's doing shout outs. It's doing resource for teachers. Our instructional behavioral coaches have a section that they're pushing on information as well, kind of the themes that they're getting asked. They're able to push out those resources within the newsletter. So it hits a broader range of staff versus just the coaching cycle that they're working with the direct teacher or support provider in. We are also working on our special education website. It is not done. I had higher aspirations for myself of having this done this year, but we didn't get there. There were other things that needed to prioritize, but we were able to, and what that means is we're taking all of our guidance documents and refreshing them under compliance. So we're able to then, if a staff member has a question, we're able to say, here's the guidance document, versus potentially getting 2 or 3 different answers. So I think that there was a lot there already. We're just taking it and making it even better. We also are able to, through an OSHA grant that we secured early in the year, we were able to support UKERU implementation. And UKERU is a trauma-informed practice that focuses on de-escalation and trauma-informed versus, like CPI has a lot of good things about it, but it also could end in like a restricted procedure. The goal of UKERU is that we're not ending this in like a restricted procedure and more, more trauma-informed practice. We have focused on Orchard Lake, Lake Marion, and Oak Hills for the full implementation, and then done smaller trainings in pockets for teams that have needed it. The goal is to expand next year. Special Education Institute, we are bringing that back for this summer. So August 19th, we're planning an opportunity for our incoming special education staff and returning staff to have a day of just special education work together for us to calibrate and celebrate and get us focused for the year. So we're really excited about that. Opportunities for this year, we had the Special Education Advisory Committee, the SEAC meeting, that it was my first year, a privilege of supporting that group, which has been really great to hear from families or parents of the community and listen to what's showing up for them every day and being able to work through that. It's been really a great honor. We have a new position in conjunction with teaching and learning for next year, looking at, we already have IDSS coaches and mentors, but we're creating a new position that will focus just on special education staff. So they will have a mentor that can focus on all the things: professional development, evaluation, curriculum instruction, teaching practices. So looking forward to hiring that unicorn of a person. And then, thank you. And then the mentor-mentee program, we were celebrating. We've had 53 new staff participate this year, and we have 10 mentors that are leading that work. I do have a staff spotlight video that we worked with communications on. I think it's like 2 minutes. Can we do it? Yeah. Okay.
Occupational therapy is really near and dear to my heart. The mentorship program has helped prepare me for the day-to-day roles and responsibilities, but it's also helped when I have a question come up. I have someone who I can go to get that question answered. And then because I'm set up for success, I can make sure that my students are also set up for success.
I think there's always a pretty steep learning curve when you're either switching into a new district or, like for me, switching into a new career. This is a first for me, and having Derek to fall back on has helped me learn the organizational patterns that I need to be successful, learn how to speak to students and talk about some of the challenges that they may have.
You know, it's easier to go through challenges when you have a team that you genuinely love to be around, and you feel more supported. It really makes me feel like I am a part of something bigger than myself, and that it's not just me alone on my island every day.
So in the process of doing the mentorship relationships, not only has it been an opportunity for the mentees to learn, I myself as a mentor have had a great opportunity to refresh and increase my passion for things, listening to some of the pieces that they've learned from other settings as well.
The whole SPED team here at McGuire, it's very obvious how intentional they are with everybody. Students are very well thought of. We talk about them a lot, and so we as a team have been able to make sure that every student is having their time in the sunlight. How do we make sure that their needs are being met? And we talk about that very intentionally.
She's definitely that support system, but she also helps me sift through, like, okay, what is important, what's not important, and for the things that really need to be addressed, what are the systems that are in place within Lakeville schools to get that change started. But also, it's really opened up other conversations that, you know, her being at North and me being at South, it's really been a great opportunity for us to look at ways to become more consistent with our systems across North and South.
It's the dual relationship of it. Both of us are learning at the same time. We're learning, are there gaps? Are there things that we need to do better to teach you as the new person? And learning, what are some of the new things that you have, what are experiences that you have that can be put in place to make it more efficient, to make it better for our students, to help build the relationships and do the things that we need to do.
I just feel really grateful to be a part of the Lakeville School District and the team that's really supporting these students and helping them grow and meet their potential. It's been really fun to see the progress firsthand, and just to be a part of the team that makes that happen is really meaningful to me.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Yes.
All right, Director Thompson, you're first up.
No, well, thank you. I apologize. I thought we were going to go through 20 more slides because we're all part of the same bucket. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a long, I can't know if I can wait that long, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you for waiting. Thank you, Brian, for waiting. Back to your first slide. I'm fascinated by, so first of all, I appreciate you sharing the data because it's super interesting just to hear. And looking at the org chart, like to me, that's not enough people just when we've got 2,000 students in this kind of capacity. But the success for every student, you've got one, and again, when a normal, maybe a community member looks at it, it's not academic focused at all when you look at the success for every student in regards to the special education designations. Can you tell me a little bit more about a specific learning disability? What does that kind of like encompass, and because is that like where your like dyslexia students would fall under, or like miscellaneous?
Yeah, so you generally SLD, specific learning disabilities around reading, writing, or math.
Okay, so then of the 12 or 11 different buckets, would that be considered I don't want to say the majority, but if we've got 2,000 students, there's going to be probably a top 3, and I'm just curious if specific learning disability would be amongst one of the top 3. So
our data from like our 2026 data, so last school year, specific learning disability was 3.3% of our overall special education
population. Okay, so it's not very high
No.
at all. Fascinating.
No.
Okay, I thought it would be much higher with, I think it's a 503, 504. 504 plans. Yeah.
To put that in perspective, like our autism spectrum is 3.6%.
Okay, 3.6. Okay. So thank you for that, for the clarity on that one.
Yep.
And then the second question that I have is this: settings 1, 2, and 3 in each building.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking to myself in my head, okay, that's how do we scale? And I don't know if that is something that we can scale, meaning that if we're going to put one in each building, that is just from a business sense, that's the cost of doing business. Like we're going to have a dedicated resource in every building in that respective setting, no matter the volume of kids that are in there. But I'm assuming the staff count is going to vary based on the number of kids that need that kind of setting. Is there a reason why we didn't try to centralize? Because I'm just in my mind, I'm envisioning it as kids move on to the next grade, or new kids move in, new kids move out. Does that student count vary throughout the course of the school year? And is it, I don't want to say seasonal, but is it drastic enough where we are then understaffed because we don't have enough people in the appropriate buildings because we have one in every building, versus if you centralize and or have core pockets of like 3 or 4, then the staffing variation wouldn't be as dramatic or drastic. I don't know. These are just a few things thinking through in my head around if we're going to have settings 1, 2, and 3 in each building, which is great, but then also the downstream ramifications on the impact if the count changes. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'll start, and then Michelle, if you have anything to add as well. But I think providing a continuum is important because ultimately space has something to do with this, of course, and we want students to have access to their general education peers. So when we're looking at the needs within each building, to provide a continuum of setting 1, 2, 3 allows for some of that room for growth. They've gained the skills, we reduce the setting. Or they're showing us they need more, so we're able to move into a setting 3 program. I think staffing-wise, we have been able to be pretty aligned with the needs because we're trying to keep students within their home school, or they're based on their address in setting 1 and 2. Our center-based programs are where it is not necessarily guaranteed to be in your home school. That's where we go to where the program is, which some of it is what is the building construction. Do we have access to the restrooms within the room, for example, for our ACES classrooms? So the amount of space needed to support the students and the continuum is maybe where I would start that answer.
Yeah, we'll continue. I would also just add too that the majority population of students that we serve are students with a disability of ASD, and that's the most of our center-based programming throughout the district. And so we do have pockets of our DCD programming in specific buildings because of a lot of the reasons that Alexia just shared too, like bathroom needs and that. Same with our MAPT program. They are concentrated really in a few specific buildings. In terms of staffing, most of those programs, all the students receive occupational therapy, speech services, so we staff also according to, we're staffing that at every building.
In every building.
Yeah.
And so then, I first of all, I love the fact that a student can go to their home school because they see their friends, they see their neighborhood, and ideally it would be great to be having them close by or in the same building. And then, but if the volume fluctuates, then the staffing, you've got maybe some limitations around that, whether you got to bring some in or then you've got to reallocate maybe different responsibilities for some staff and wait until things may change here and there. But it's one of those, again, from a business sense, it's like, hey, you've got customers that are coming in and we need to be able to provide that service within that respective location. And it's just part of the cost of, like, that's what you do. And so I appreciate hearing that. I think for me, as we continue to grow, as more students come in and out, how does that impact and how do we make sure that you have the right levers to be able to get what you need staffing wise? And then also from a district perspective, how do we make sure that our staff are also fully utilized? Because if the population changes, I'm assuming then their utilization is less than it was before. And so obviously there's things that can be done. And then the last question that I have, so thank you for that. The last question that I had was the 48 contractors. Glad that you've identified 19 to here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Time to move on. Do you convert them into FTEs then? Or are these roles that are not FTE warrantable because the capacity is not there? You know what I mean? I don't know.
The current contractors are for open positions that we're not able to fill.
Yep.
So hard to fill positions, or we've had staff that have taken leaves through the course of the year, so they're filling a current FTE.
Got it. And so when the FTE comes back, then there isn't a need for them.
Yeah,
Okay,
so like
got it.
So clarifying, so then at the end of every school year, then it would be letting them go essentially.
Yep.
We're reposting the position, we're hoping to be able to hire a Lakeville employee, and then if we don't, then we're able to reach out to our contracted providers to say we do have a need. Even if we were able to secure a contracted position for day one of the school year and say on September 15th we were able to get a great candidate, then we would just let that contractor go at that time and take on the Lakeville employee.
Yeah, and to see your special education FTE requisition needs of being less than 20 or so. I think last year at this time we were like 80 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so this is fantastic. And then knowing then you use the contractors as a backfill if we can't get the 20.
Yes.
Awesome. Good.
Great. Dr. Baker?
So I have several questions. I'm sure you knew that, but just to answer Director Thompson's question, I think a lot of the misunderstanding around special education is that people see setting and they think it's a classroom place. That's just how much time they're spending in special education. So one case manager may have a setting 1, 2, and 3 student on their caseload just based on how much support they need throughout the school day. That doesn't mean that's 3 separate classrooms, so just to clarify that. So one of the questions that I had, and I'll just kind of go down the list and then you guys can help me out here. When you had the different classrooms set up, I did not see a middle school model for ACEs. Is that because those students are absorbed into like the A+ classrooms at the middle school model, or do they not have a middle school program? Or maybe that's a mistake.
I'll go to my grid. I don't think we do.
I think it's like slide 125.
Yep,
Or
I'm gonna look,
PDF
I'm gonna
125.
cross-check.
Maybe.
We do not have an ACES program.
So what happens, so there's like 1, 2, so it's 3, 4, 5, there's 6 classrooms in elementary school, and then there's none in middle school, and then there's 2 classrooms at the high school. So what happens to those students?
We haven't, I mean, I can see of our programming right now, we have many of our students that are transitioning into an A+ or a DCD classroom.
Okay, yeah, I just know that like the ACES program, that specific student population, and you correct me if I'm wrong, they rely really heavily on AAC devices, and the type of one-to-one support that they need is pretty extensive. So then I worry about them just being absorbed into another A+ classroom where they're not getting that support that they need. Because I mean, in an A+ classroom, you're looking at a staffing ratio or a student ratio of what, like 12 to 18 students, and an ACES classroom is what, 6? So then when I think about that, transitioning into the middle school with them all in one classroom with like 12 other students on the spectrum, I guess like in my mind, I'm just making sure they're getting the support that they need. Not only them, but also the classroom teacher, because I would think that you would need more paraprofessionals to serve that.
Yes, that is a heavily staffed from a para support program to support all the various needs, plus OT and speech language.
Okay. And then my other question was with the autism program, specifically the A+, there's 10 classrooms at the elementary level, and there's only 1 middle school that provides those services. Is the reason that they're not in the other middle schools, considering that that's our highest student population model, is that due to space constraints? Because I would think that we would want to work on FAPE there instead of space constraints.
I can't answer that as I'm inheriting this, but I can appreciate the question.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of staffing too. And then I was looking at your staffing increase where you said you added 3 speech, 5 teachers, 3 psychs. I missed the whole list. And that was over how many years, the past years?
3.
Okay, so over the past 3 years, and this is to Director Thompson's point where he said, I'm worried that you don't have the right staffing. We've had an increase of over 388 students within special education. We went from like 14% to 17.5. I can pull up the data. I have it somewhere on here. I'm looking at that increase going, I don't think we've added enough teachers to make up the amount of that increase. And when I think about as a board, what can we do to support this? The state does have models, and it's in state statute, how we staff our special education rooms specifically for students that are like DCD or that require more support. And I'm looking at other districts and how they do that. And District 196 has within their policies for the district special education staffing numbers. Is that something we need to consider in this district?
I mean, I guess I would say I would leave that up to the board to make that decision.
But it would be helpful, right, for you to know, like, as a board, like, we're looking at a setting 1 caseload, say, like, high school, and we're going to say, we don't want that classroom to go over 22 students, because I know, and you know, that throughout the school year, our numbers don't decrease, they increase as we complete evaluations. So where we start at the beginning of the year, if we're starting at an 18, as far as a caseload number, by the end of the year, we're probably going to be more like a 25. Well, again, then we go back to what's the quality of service that we're providing, and if this board is focused on academic excellence, there's no way we can provide those services without the support that's needed for staff and students.
Superintendent Baumann, are you going to jump in? No.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr.
Can
Swanson?
you just break that down a little bit more? I guess what we're doing versus what other districts are doing?
So, for example, like 196 has within their policies what their caseload numbers are across the district. So for like an ACES program, they would cap that at 6 students. And if we got over a point where we had more than 6 students, then they would start another classroom or they would add in another para. For a classroom like an A+ program, they would cap that at 12. And then they, again, would look in at the services and say, okay, now we've had 3 students move into the district or 3 more students qualify. That classroom is at 15. We know that that's beyond the capabilities of what the type of services that we want to provide that we can offer. And then they would go through with the DCD classrooms and do the same thing. And typically those are capped between 6 and 8. Again, like I can pull up the numbers from District 196 because I've looked at it before, but this is a conversation that we've had in Lakeville for several years, that we've come back to all the time saying, like, if we want to provide quality services for all of our students, then we need to really look at our model and determine, like, are we over capacity with our staff? And I have to think that maybe the reason that we can't keep special ed teachers in Lakeville is that we are asking too much, that it's over capacity for what a person can handle. That's just my thought process.
Well, and it seems like that might be a good discussion to have now that staffing is getting caught up to itself, because you run into that, I don't know what the saying is, where it perpetuates itself, essentially. If you
Right.
don't have enough staff, then people don't want to come here. But if we are getting closer to that point, maybe we do have that discussion, like what is the ideal amount? And then I guess the question is capacity, building capacity and space too.
Right, and if we look at, like, what you're saying is the positions that you're having the hardest time filling are the programs. Those are our neediest students. So maybe the reason we have such problems filling that classroom is because there's too many students in there and not enough support.
Dr. Anderson?
Yeah, I know we have, I guess, general expectations for general ed for classroom size.
Just for
Correct.
elementary
But-
only.
Yeah, but
It's kind of
but
like
that
a-
isn't in policy, is it?
Elementary
It's-
only, correct?
It's a
It's not policy.
So, yeah, I'll just say this. So
Not policy, but
it's not in policy. That's what I'm trying to get at.
the limiting factor is financial. It's not desire, will, compassion, caring. It's the same problem we have in secondary. And the dilemma, and maybe why I could certainly take 196 model and I can cost that out for you. I think it would be a big cost, but then it becomes priority. The same thing that we've done, whether you're talking about a 7-period day at the high school level or you're talking about classroom sizes at the high school level, the district has, based on funding and a long ago decision and practice of putting elementary class size guidelines in, and that becomes the first priority. It's a budgeting problem. The limiting factor is financial. So I think happy to do that kind of costing, and we've done different variations of that in the time I've been in the district, and it's a big price tag. Not to say that should be your reason. Then it becomes a matter of priority. Do you say, okay, we're not going to do elementary class size guidelines or gen ed class size guidelines so that we can fund this? But it will be an either or proposition. Now, the other thing I think demographically, 196 does not mirror this school district. However, all good ideas should be vehemently or rapidly explored and considered. So I think what Director Baker is saying is exactly right. It's been a conversation around here for a long time, and I think the work I've done on it, both as the CFO in the district and later as a superintendent, it's always been a very hefty price tag. I think it's exacerbated now post-COVID with the conversation we were having, like contractors. We're competing with contractors to hire people. And so whatever their hiring model is, they might have dibs on people before us, or people might choose to go that route instead of a employee route, and that is also probably predicated on wage. So when you throw all these different things, the combined effect works against a lot of what we try to do. But that's not a reason not to try. That's not a reason not to look at, okay, what's a better way to do this? But I think we know the answers to that. They might change over time in terms of what the amount of money we're talking about is, and it rarely goes down. It typically goes up just on inflationary factors alone. But I'm happy to explore that. I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form. I just think that's kind of the bigger picture.
Oh, totally.
I think a first
Yeah.
step with that would be figuring out where we're currently at, right, with staffing. So what is our ratio at the moment in order to decide, is it drastically different from 196 or another district? Yep, Director Baker, then Thompson.
So that was my next question, was asking, can we get the ratios for the current caseloads across the district by setting? And then also, can we get a number for how many students with disabilities are open enrolling out of the district? And I ask that one specifically because I am a parent of children with disabilities, and I am involved in the parent community pretty heavily. And I've seen the conversation shift over the past 10 years to where people used to come to this district for special education, and now everyone's telling parents, and you can pull up any special needs Facebook page, and it's the same thing. Don't go to Lakeville, go over here to 196, like they have it. Well, then that's money going out our door, because if they're open enrolling out of our district, then we have to pay that district to provide the services. So again, then we're losing money. So if we're going to do it on finances, that's something to do too. And I know, like, and I don't mean that to be negative against this district at all, because I owe everything for what my children have accomplished from this district. And actually, I enjoyed watching the staffing thing because I recognized some of the people and they provided services for some of my kids. So love this district, want to help, was just an observation.
Dr. Thompson?
Yeah, I think the comment that I was going to share is that, you can't have both. You can't have everything. And if we have a fixed amount of dollars, either we have services in every single location, or we have services in half the locations, and that allows you to take advantage of the staff that you have. And so do you give students better, I don't know if you run the numbers, but do you give students better, are class sizes smaller if you have less locations, or do you give the students the ability to go to their home school, but then it costs more because you got to put capabilities in all the schools. And so I don't know the answer, but I think that's a philosophical discussion that the board has to decide. Do you want smaller class sizes, or do you want students to be able to go to their home school? Period. Like that's really the discussion. I don't know.
That's actually not what I was saying. Like, they don't have to go to their home school to provide some of the services. We provide them within the other buildings, and if there's a smaller percentage of population of students, then they are served in different buildings. My children were part of that population that was served. Not asking for that, just saying that we should look at caseloads and make sure that we're staffing things correctly. My second point is that a lot of people feel like, or they think that the services and supports that we put in for special education only work for special education, and that is so not true. Yes, it's 10% of the population, but when you provide those supports across the continuum, it benefits all students, not just that 10%. So I think that we're missing the idea here if we think that if we're focusing on our most needy population, that we're ignoring the gen ed and the rest of the capacity, because that's just not true. It's just not at all. Essentially, for example, I'll use dyslexia as an example. A lot of the reading supports that you put in place for a student that has a profile of dyslexia work for all students. Focusing on academics or phonics and teaching it in a multisensory approach works for all students. It doesn't just work for the certain percentage of the student population that struggles with dyslexia. So I just think we need to have an open mindset when we think about it and look at the broader picture of what those supports can do for the entire school environment, not just the students that are accessing special education.
Director Swanson?
Yeah, I have 3 questions. So you had noted that we have 14 students that are currently waiting placement at 917, so I assume those are the setting 4 students. So where are they currently housed and being serviced?
Currently in the program that a center-based program throughout the district. So with the waiting list for 917, it can be upwards of a year before a student actually can have an intake. A student, a family can have an intake, and so we have to get creative with the programming, with what we can offer here. And sometimes that creative programming looks like we add another one-to-one para for that student while they are waiting to get into 917. Sometimes there's been where we've shortened a student's school day. It's not my favorite option, but we have had to shorten a student's school day while they are waiting for placement. So it really is for those students that get on the waiting list, determining what creative programming we can do right here in Lakeville until they're able to get an intake.
Kind of related, I assume those students kind of are on the spectrum of ages. It's not just younger students.
Not just one grade level, or there's not just all elementary or middle or high school. It spans across K to 12.
Okay. Then on the other And once a student, and I know that we use our early childhood to kind of identify students as well. Once a student's identified as needing special or being in special needs category, how often are they evaluated and possibly removed from those services?
Excellent question. So students need to be reevaluated every 3 years to see if they still qualify as having a disability. At that time, then we can dismiss students. So it's every 3 years. And if a special education team is seeing that a student is making progress on their goals or have met all their goals, the team can do a reevaluation sooner than 3 years to see if a student could be exited from services.
And how often does that happen?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head right now, but can certainly get it to you for this year on the number of students who have been dismissed.
Okay. So one last question or questions were on the Ikiru?
Ukeru.
How do you say it?
Ukeru.
Ukeru? Is that only for like special ed, or is this like a district-wide policy that's being implemented? And then I guess the question is when did you start implementation of that?
Yeah. So we are focusing on our center-based programs in special education. It is not a district-wide or building-wide program. And again, the focus is to be like a restraint-free crisis management system. I can't remember the date we received the OSHA grant early in the school year, and then we rolled out our first training session late in the fall, and then we've been able to provide follow-up support within the programs who are implementing it through our behavior coaches.
And along those lines, have you been tracking like the number of incidents, the number of injuries, those kind of things along the way so you can compare to see whether the program's effective?
Yes, and I can get those numbers too, but we have significantly reduced, I'll pause, let me back up. Not that we have a huge number of restrictor procedures, and with the implementation of UCARO, we have significantly reduced the amount of restrictor procedures with students, and I can get those numbers for you.
Just one more. Is this a growing trend, or
Yes.
other districts around us use that as well?
Yes. It started out east, and I think I heard of it for the first time probably 6 years ago, and it's making its way into, I think, the Midwest and larger districts because they're seeing the success.
I'd say, just to add, so there was 3 or 4 classrooms that really were high needs, and those classrooms that were identified this year kind of as the pilot have students on the setting 4 wait list. So we really were looking at what is the specific need. The OSHA grant helped us to purchase the mats that are required for the program. The mats can be pretty spendy, so that is another reason why we that's another reason why we just focused it to some really select sites in classrooms.
Great. Director Baker?
So I sat on the seclusion work group for the state of Minnesota, and it was one of the practices that the state identified as an effective practice to reduce restrictive procedures. So it is recognized by the state as well.
And staff injuries.
Yes, yes, yeah. I would also say that like the first part of the course where it talks about trauma-informed practices, that would be beneficial for all staff to hear that.
Okay.
We've started that at one school, actually.
I have a couple of questions. One is congrats on the staffing, by the way, that's exciting. And I know people have mentioned it before at the board, or we've heard it, how difficult it can be to fully staff special ed, right? Are we on par with our peers generally in terms of our staffing challenges, or do you feel like Lakeville is having more challenges or less challenges than, our metro area peers? Where do we kind of fall with that, would you say?
I would say in terms of the larger districts, our districts similar to Lakeville, we are probably right on par with staffing. Smaller districts, just from what I've been able to notice, tend to be able to staff fully, or maybe one or two staff that aren't able to be filled, but.
Can I share something about that? So that was the reason that 917 was looking into international hires to help fill classroom positions, because they also struggle with that. In Owatonna, we struggle with it too, but we were able to do the para apprenticeship program, and we partner with Mankato State for that. So we have paras that apply for to be a part of it, and then we choose, and then they go to school to be a special ed teacher, and they work within our classrooms with one of our special ed teachers. It's kind of nice because you get extra hands within the classroom, but this year we graduated 6 para apprentices with special education teaching licenses. We only had like 2 openings, so we hired 2, and then gift to the districts around us got our other 4, because we're able to do that. We have another, it takes 2 years to go through, so we have another cohort coming up that'll graduate next year, and then we just interviewed and added a couple more for next year to start another new cohort. So that's a way that you can train the staff within your own buildings, and they become apprentices within your classrooms as extra sets of hands, but they're also learning to be special ed teachers, and then you're graduating your own teachers that can fill your spots.
Great, thank you. On the slide where you talked about the increase in staffing going up in the last 3 years, do you feel like that is both based on student growth just in the district or student, the growth in those particular staff is just because our students need different services, but we have more or less the same number? Does that question make sense? Or is it a combination of both?
Both.
Okay. And do you feel like, our district population student population continues to grow, albeit smaller than I think we originally predicted? Do you feel like the special education growth is mirroring our general student growth, or are we seeing a higher growth in special education students than the general ed population?
I did, so in looking at Infinite Campus, so when you look at our numbers across, we have fluctuating, consistent growth from 21 to 2024, and then 24 to 26, it leveled a little, but I would say our growth is looking between 75 and 100 students a year. Yes, growth, but it's kind of plateaued in the last 2 years.
Sure. Okay. And one more question, and you might not know this off the top of your head, and that's fine. Do you feel like our special education enrollment rate is similar to other districts our size, or are we higher or lower in terms of the percent of students being serviced? Okay, well, Director Baker, but do you all have a perspective on that?
It'd be anecdotal.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. We can touch base later on the data.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. You're welcome. Okay, any other questions? All right, great. Well, thank you both very much. All right, with that, we'll turn to policy updates. So there are 3 policies considered first readings on today's agenda. The first one is policy 606.5, and Director Brovold, if you want to come up, you're more than welcome. The board discussed this particular policy, library materials and form, at length at our work session. Director Brovold, is there anything you want to add tonight? Any recommendations coming forward from you for any changes at this time?
I don't have anything additional. I forwarded it as is.
Okay. Is there any questions or discussion on this more than what we talked about the other night? Yes, Director
I'd like
Thompson.
to make 10 motions. How would you like me to present them?
So we're not voting on this tonight. This is just considered a first reading, because technically the work session doesn't count as a first reading because we didn't have public comment.
Got it.
So we did discuss at length the policy.
Well,
to bring to a second
Do
reading.
we want to discuss it now, or do we want to just wait until next time and I bring the 10 motions up?
I would suggest that as then we'd have a formal way to vote.
Well, I mean, I think it's on for discussion, right? So it doesn't have to be a motion, but you can.
Yeah. Oh,
Why don't you-
certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make recommendations, certainly.
Or discussion.
Yeah.
Also, just want to make sure we keep it respectful, please.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I feel like you're being respectful.
Yeah.
So.
It seems a little snarky to me.
Okay. So yeah, in addition to what was documented, I guess, at the work session, do you have other recommendations for?
The general context of, or the draft of the policy, again, is coming from the Minnesota School Board Association. And so, again, their policies are just drafts that they recommend, but not official that we need to. And so when I read the policy again and just kind of recap from our discussion from the working session, again, there was some contradictions in the policy itself. I think the biggest one that I have is the very last one, where it says that I don't have the policy in front of me, sorry. The very last sentence, or the one where it says that the committee is binding and final. And so I'll start from the first one, okay, and kind of go from there. The first one is in section 2, the general purpose of the statement.
Can you, because this one has lines, do you mind reading
Yeah.
the line? That way we document
Yep.
research needs. Great, thanks. Or I can find it too, Brian, if it's.
Yeah. I don't have them lined up correctly.
Okay, that's fine. Just go
I'll
ahead.
pause
Go ahead.
and you guys can keep
You can-
discussing, and
you
I
can
can
go.
find it. It's okay. I'll pause.
Are you sure? Okay. Does anyone else have any comments about this policy tonight? Director Swanson, yeah.
Yeah. Just two thoughts for consideration of the board. 270. Use of the challenge resources shall not be restricted during the reevaluation proceedings. I just put that it does not have to be restricted, because what if they want to restrict it? And we're saying, no,
The
you can't.
district?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then it leaves the discretion up to them, because they might want to, depending on what the material is. And then under 316 through 318-ish, we crossed out, and this kind of relates back to 342 to 343, which is the decision of the review committee shall be final and binding. I would propose that we strike the decision as binding and then add back in 316 to 318. The requester may appeal the review committee's decision, but I would say to the Board of Education by submitting a written appeal to the school board. Yeah, or school board. I can't remember. We're going
School board, I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We get.
To the school board by submitting a written appeal to the whoever they would submit it to.
So is your thought with that?
So the decisions would all be made below, right? Selection, curating, but then if it's challenged, there is a decision process that it goes through, and then they'd provide a written recommendation or a decision, and then if it's challenged again, we would review the written decision of that committee, and we would essentially affirm it or
deny
reverse it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what is the purpose of the committee then, if the board will overrule it?
Well,
Like,
we
why
don't
have the
necessarily.
committee at all?
Because the committee's appointed by, the superintendent and his staff, right? Who, we get people who come up here and have grievances about things that we can't really do, right? We have one employee. So instead of putting all the onus on elected officials to make this final determination, which can be highly scrutinized by the public, why not have the board take on the onus of that and bear the responsibility of it? I would guess that we would probably go with the recommendation most of the time if it's a well-reasoned recommendation, but you never know, right?
Matt, do you not want to add a school board member on the committee? Because that was something we discussed last time.
I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea, but if the appeals could ultimately go to the school board, then it kind of negates that process too. But I don't think that's a bad idea.
Well, I wouldn't say it negates it. I just think I appreciate when we have, like, Carly that sits on teaching and learning, and then when something comes to us from teaching and learning and she's been involved in the process, like, she kind of fills in the gaps.
Sure.
So I would think that if you were going to add that process to where it comes to the school board, I would appreciate having a school board member that sits on the committee who could then inform the board about all of the process that's been involved up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
Director Carbone?
Yeah, I know I mentioned this in the work session, but technically, even if the committee says, no, it's done, we don't agree with what you're suggesting, whoever's doing that, they could come to public comment, hold whatever it is, a line in the book or whatever, up to the camera, read it, and because we're all elected officials, we might have a public relations issue, depending upon what it is. So back to the potential of having, I hate to use this analogy, but like the Supreme Court making the final decision, if in fact, I'm not sure that's a bad idea. Because ultimately, they'll get it to the public by coming to public comment, if they're that passionate, whoever it is.
And they might even come before they launch an appeal, right? They'll
Yeah.
just come and talk about a book. So I think either
Right.
way, you can have a PR
You know,
issue.
and
I
whatever-
don't think it would stop it, but yeah.
Right, exactly.
Director Swanson, did you find, or do you have, were yours mirroring?
I think they're similar, but
You have some additional?
yeah, they're
Oh,
similar.
sorry.
That's
Sorry.
fine. Yeah.
Onsen, you know.
They're similar.
Tom's son.
I'm trying to find it and cross check, but you know what? I'm going to just pause and I will email them to the appropriate folks after the meeting and then share my concerns.
Perfect. So I think what we can do is take these ideas, give them to Superintendent Bauman. Is that okay? for the library specialist, the digital media specialist to think about and offer any addendums or changes. And then at the next meeting, we would, at the next formal board meeting, we'd have a second reading, and if the board would like to make any additional suggestions for changes, that's when we could do amendments to the policy too.
Yep.
Director Thompson.
And I do want to just acknowledge that this is a new policy.
Correct.
The district does not have one. There were a lot of folks that within the district that reviewed it, that put it together, did recommendations, and again, I'm appreciative of what they did. The changes that I want to see is that it has a little bit more of board, I don't want to say authority, but board oversight. And so when we have flexibility to say, hey, we're not going to approve finances, or we want to move finances around, or we're not going to approve curriculum and we still need to vote on those kind of things, the board still has general oversight, and that isn't conveyed very well in the respective policy. That's all. So if we make those minor tweaks to it, the process, the people involved, how it gets reviewed and decided by subject matter experts, 100% aligned on that. But there still needs to be a little bit of governance and some sort of check and balance in that. And the minor changes that Director Swanson says, I think will accommodate that.
Director Anderson.
Yeah, can we just make sure that, I think if people, I don't know, I think it'd be helpful for people to know ahead of our second reading what the recommendations are from each board member. So obviously we can't communicate, like engage conversation, but good for all board members to know what the suggestions are so people have time to think about it for our second reading.
So do you want us to just send it to everybody?
Yeah.
And then nobody respond to it?
Yes.
Or do we send it to to Chair Cameron, and you want to just, how do you do that? Because
I think if you can send your questions or ideas to Superintendent Bauman, then you can curate and CC me. I'll make sure it's tracked.
Okay.
I mean, you track things very well, but
And then it'll be shared with us
and then it'll
before
be
the
shared.
meeting? Okay.
Yeah, before the meeting.
got it.
Does that work? Okay. Great. Okay. Moving on to first reading of policy 102, equal educational opportunity. Director Albrecht, thanks for being here. This is a redlined copy of a current policy that we have, and the red line comes from the MSBA policy audit. So Director Albrecht's going to walk us through the changes, the recommended changes.
Yes, minor changes. Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Bauman, and members of the school board. You have before you this evening a first reading of policy 102, which is our equal educational opportunity policy. Updates to this policy reflect minor language updates for clarity. The notes in the policy will be removed upon final approval. There is no action necessary, as this is a first reading of policy. You'll see in Section 2, Item A, there's some minor language updates there. Those language updates are reflecting current language in statute. That's a really simple change to that policy.
And that's where all the content changes are, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on the recommended changes? Director Thompson?
Yeah, so is this going to follow our, how would we designate this particular change? Would this be considered a technical change, or because it's not the consent agenda, and then this is kind of like our first and second reading, is it considered a revision, even though there's minor changes? And then the last comment that I have is just the cross-reference has some MSBA reference to it that we'd want to clean up, but that's it.
Correct.
Make sense?
Correct. I believe this would be considered a revision, as it's not just like commas and updating school boards, Board of Education, correct? Yeah. Director Swanson?
Should it be accommodations and not accommodation? Do we have an ELA teacher here?
What, if I can change that, if that's what the board
I mean, we changed
like.
it. I was just wondering if it should be accommodations and not accommodation. We swapped it for
We can
some
double
reason.
check that.
What do you want to use? Do a parentheses? Because sometimes you may not need more than one. I mean,
I think
We're
to,
probably changing it to, so that there's not, so there's not presumption of more than one, but there could be an accommodation for several different reported disabilities. So like, if a student had multiple needed accommodations, that would be based on, like, you might just have a student have one need, but you might have multiple different
It's just a
things that
medical
are
thing.
being
It just
addressed.
makes reasonable accommodation for students. Reasonable accommodations for students.
I think it's changing from like a,
How
almost
about
like
if
an
I put
action
a
from a.
parenthesis,
Kind of rhetorical, but-
S parenthesis after accommodation?
perfect. That sounds great.
Okay.
Any other questions or
Great,
comments on
Brenda.
this policy?
that one's on the record.
Okay. Moving to the last first reading for policy 531, the Pledge of Allegiance. And Director Albrecht, you're going to walk us through this. too.
Yes. Policy 531, this is a first reading, the Pledge of Allegiance. Changes to this policy reflect minor language updates that are also aligned with statute. So the language items that you see changed in Section 2, items B, C, and just B and C, sorry. Those reflect changes to statute to update the policy. So these are minor changes.
Great. Any questions or discussion? Okay. So these will, we'll move all of them to a second reading for our next regular meeting. But if you have any changes you'd like to see, please email them in advance to Superintendent Bauman for consideration. And we can bring those ideas to the next meeting. If not, you can bring amendments to that meeting too. So, great.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving to number 5, reports with recommended actions. So tonight we have a second reading of policy 512, school-sponsored student publications and activities. We discussed this policy at our last board meeting, regular board meeting in April. We discussed it at our last work session, and Superintendent Bauman was charged with bringing a revised draft forward and has made some suggested edits after our discussion, and believe you're going to walk us through those.
Yes, so if we start at the top, purpose, no change, general statement of policy, no change. So A, B, both of those as they were originally read, no change there. Definitions, no change in A. B, definition retained. C, minor, means any person under the age of 18. So that's also no change. The obscene to minors definition, D, is retained. E and F are retained with the following recommended changes in F after item number 3. I recommended the following be added, and that is based on the conversation and notes that I took from the board during the discussion, which I think centered on a desire to be more defined or prescriptive around the definition of what is school-sponsored. And I think for the purposes of this policy, school-sponsored media shall mean only those student media activities, publications, broadcasts, websites, digital platforms, social media accounts, or communication channels that are authorized or officially recognized by the school district or school administration and sponsored by a designated student media advisor. School-sponsored media may include, but is not limited to, student newspapers, broadcast journalism programs, student news websites, school-sponsored podcasts, student media, social media accounts, and other officially authorized student media activities. Independent student expression, including personal social media accounts, independently created websites, private digital communications, or unofficial student publications, does not become school-sponsored media solely because it discusses school-related matters, references the district or school, or is accessible online. Finally, use of district equipment, internet platforms, artificial intelligence tools, or discussion of school-related matters alone does not establish school sponsorship. Everything else remains the same. So that was my effort at trying to get the right language to address, I think, Director Thompson and Director Swanson, and I think Director Reichenberger. Everybody had a piece of that they wanted to get clarity around. So that's what I would recommend as red line in this reading for the purposes of advancing 512 school-sponsored student publications and activities currently does not exist in our inventory and is recommended by the Minnesota School Board Association with those red line additions. Pending your questions.
And is there a motion to approve this red line copy?
So moved.
First by Riker. We'll get to discussion too.
I mean, this isn't the red line copy, though, right? These are just the proposed changes to what would be the policy?
Yes. We'll get you a
This
red
includes the
line
whole
copy.
policy. I think
If you go in there, you'll see that it identifies each and every element of the policy. It's not our standard format. I'll correct that.
Okay.
So-
It's missing the whole bunch of underneath, but this is just.
It's not missing anything. It's addressed every single element of that, of 512. Now, it looks a lot different because it's shorter, it's succinct, it's direct, and to the point.
The revision of the.
It's just not the final policy. These are the changes that would be made to the
That is
draft policy.
correct. Yes, sir.
And so I'm wondering if we need to have the updated policy for approval
That has everything.
with these incorporated. So I guess the question is, are we okay with these changes?
Well, I don't think a community member would have seen last week's. I mean, it wouldn't be considered official.
They wouldn't have seen the first reading?
Yeah.
2 weeks, or it was at the April meeting where it was published.
I mean, even though it's published, but they're like, this is the first one technically. I don't know. It's fine. I understand what we're trying to get to, but.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is the board suggesting that we bring forward the full policy with these red lines inserted so that it's all in one piece before we would approve the policy?
I mean, or the motion just needs to be that we're approving the MSBA policy with these edits to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe a
Would you be interested
modification.
in making that motion?
What's the motion that's on the table?
The motion is to approve the red line copy as.
But it doesn't
as
have a
exists.
second, right?
There's
It
no
was just-
second.
it
I'm
was
going to
just a
withdraw
motion.
that a second until we sort this out.
Perfect. All right, is there a motion to approve the MSBA policy as presented in the April regular board meeting and discussed at the work session with these additional modifications that are redlined inserted into that MSBA model policy?
I will move for that.
Great, thanks. First by Reichenberger, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Carbone. Discussion. Yeah, Director Reichenberger.
Yeah, I really want to thank you, Superintendent Baumann. My apprehension about this was basically about how easy it is in social media and digital world for publications, particularly when we're trying to encourage students to create and put together organization, documentation, newsletters, things of that nature, and how there should be a boundary line between what is a formal school publication, a school administrative publication, and those more informal ones that do tend to pop up and do happen at some time to time. And I really do appreciate the work you did on trying to define those parameters. And I think what you wrote here does a really good job of that. It really helps clarify what is indeed a school-sponsored media activity and what is not. And I think that was where a lot of the discussion and questions we had were. So thank you very much.
Other discussion? Director?
Yeah, I've got two comments. I wasn't sure that in the definitions, letter C, where it says minor means any person under the age of 18. I know we have some high school students that are 19. I don't know if that plays a part or not. To the extent of a minor would be any, maybe do we need to add another designation saying that if you are a student of the high school as a consideration? So that's just one thing that I noticed. And then the second thing that I would like to get clarification on is that the first bullet, again, it's a supervised by a designated student media advisor, which I think that clarifies a lot of things. But the one example that I'll use is at Lakeville South, there is a Instagram for Lakeville South DECA or something like and so I don't know if that is an account that was created by a student, or I don't know if that was an account that was created by the advisor who asked the student to create it, because they may not have one. But in that instance, if I'm walking through the scenario, because it wasn't designated by a student media advisor, the DECA advisor is not a student media advisor, it's just an activities advisor, then that would be outside the scope of this respective policy.
Correct.
Okay,
Your
cool.
understanding, Superintendent?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm aligned.
And to the minor question, the MSBA...
I got an aligned, so we can stop now. Just kidding.
The MSBA model policy has the age of 18, so we could approve it, but then ask legal just in the event we would ever have to amend it if it needs to get changed, but there's probably a reason it's 18.
I mean, a minor's under the age of 18.
Your understanding?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All in favor of approving the MSBA model policy with the noted red line edits from Superintendent Baumann, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right. Board member reports. Anyone like to share any news? Director Baker?
I have one thing. I just want to call out one of our teacher retirees. Mike Dirks has worked in this district forever. He's been on the top of the seniority list forever. He was in, there was an article in the paper about him this past week, if you had a chance to read it, just about his time in Lakeville, all in Lakeville, which also is rare, and he's definitely going to be greatly missed. I've heard from students about the many different things that he's done within our district. He's a great math teacher. I personally don't like math, but I appreciate what he does. One of the things I remember hearing from him personally, he had shared with me about how he had been a sponsor for a student group, and their group was the tie club. So they met every week and they would just wear ties to school, like and they bought out like our local Goodwill of like all the ties, and just cool that he supports different students and their achievements. And then also, like I said, as a special ed parent, I had several parents share with me that their kids did really well in his math class because he was really good at accommodating for different students. So just want to wish Mike Dirks congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for your service to Lakeville.
Great. Thanks. And tomorrow we get to celebrate all the staff retirements at the recognition event, so that will be exciting. Other celebrations, or, sorry, news.
There is
Director
celebration.
Anderson.
Both mine are celebration. So I heard our superintendent really praising many different people in terms of getting our bond referendum passed. I want to thank fellow board members, especially our superintendent, who is also a cheerleader across the district and really promoting what our students need. So in addition to all those departments, thank you, Superintendent Baumann, for the tireless amount of energy and enthusiasm you put into this district day after day. So thank you. And then I also wanted to acknowledge that one of our teachers, Krista Schlegel, was on the Wheel of Fortune. And I was so excited. I was so mad at my husband because he forgot to record it for me. And so I had to wait until Saturday morning. It aired on Friday night. And I don't want to spoil it for people if they want.
You can spoil it.
So yeah, it has been announced across the district, but she got into the bonus round. It was so great. So anyway, I was cheering for her in my living room. So anyway, great job, Crystal, and go fulfill your dreams. That should include or encourage us all to do that. So yes, thank you.
Other updates, or Director Reichenberger.
A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to interview a number of students at Highview Elementary School as part of their ongoing studies, and I will tell you, they are a fun bunch of kids with a lot of confidence, some really bright futures ahead of all of them. I also took part this past week at the DCD graduation at Lakeville North, which was absolutely wonderful. It was a great occasion. I encourage as many people to go see as many different graduations over the coming weeks as possible, because it is a really, really great time. It's not just an ending, it's a beginning for a lot of these kids. So make the most of it while you can. It's fantastic.
Thanks. I too went to Highview and did the interviews and was blown away. These kids could land jobs, I think, better than most adults, which was pretty cool. And I got to hear the mayoral speeches too. They had candidates running for mayor and campaign managers, and it was quite the show. And so thanks to Highview for inviting us in. I also was able to attend Century Middle School's Art and Culture Fair. So all of the cultural liaisons were there, as well as student groups. So there was some amazing Indian dance happening. And then in the gym, artwork from all grade levels were presented. And I brought my first grader with, and he wanted to know if any of them were for sale because he wanted to purchase them. And so that accolades to the artist for presenting some really amazing pieces, and to the art teacher at Century for inspiring creativity amongst the kids there.
Did anyone make it to the powwow? I know we had talked about that.
Yep. Thank you. I also attended the South of the River powwow. That was a while ago now, a few weeks ago. We had 3 seniors recognized. It's a celebration for seniors from many school districts across the South Metro. So there's a student from North, South, and the ALC present. It's just such a cool event. All the students are presented with special regalia for graduation. Many school board members and administrators from other school districts are present, and you're able to go around and congratulate all the graduates from all the schools. And there's probably 1,000 people there cheering on the community. So that's great that we participate in that. So thank you to our staff here who make that happen. Appreciate that. So, yeah, great. All right, Superintendent Baumann, any report items?
Just a couple. I'll start with saying she's sitting right here in front of us today. Carrie, thank you for your service as the president of EML, and I know you're outgoing, but thank you. It's a tough job. And the gentleman sitting to your left and my right, sir, welcome, and I look forward to working with you. Also, I was going to say something about Mr. Dirks. I call him Mr. Dirks. I was in his math class today. We were doing a little thing, and just a wonderful guy. That's how I knew about the 40 years, and I read the article, so I cheated a little bit. But we're going to do staff recognition tomorrow, which I always enjoy doing. We're going to do it at Lakeville South. So if you can be there, be wonderful to be there. Lots of graduation activities, and Tony and I were at the DCD event. I think LPA is coming up here very shortly. And then, of course, We have graduation on the 4th of June at North and South. It's a new thing for us, so I'm only going to ask for a tiny bit of grace, but I think we'll have a wonderful first-time event back in Lakeville for a long, long time. So hopefully that'll all go well. I look forward to that. So thank you, and I do. All right. All I care about is sunshine, no clouds. Anyway, and to the board again, thank you on the work with the referendum, and to our community, a heartfelt thank you. I don't want to tear up, but thank you because it does matter for our kids and our families and our staff that are in our middle schools, and we're a growing community, so we got to grow with it. So thank you again.
Thanks. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn? First by Baker, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Reichenberger. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Brian say no.